Whatever's credible, she can release. If a document is credible, if a document's there that is credible, she can release. I think it's good. But it's just a subject. He's dead. He's gone. All it is certain Republicans got duped by the Democrats, and they're following a Democrat playbook. And no different than Russia, and all the other hoaxes. They're started by the Democrats, and some Republicans, in this case, I was surprised, but they got duped.
That's Donald Trump trying to somehow explain why release of the Epstein files, which were supposed to be released, including apparently by his attorney general who said she would, have still not been released. And then today, because some Republicans have been sort of saying, well, no, we said we would do this and now we're not. You're saying you're not going to do this? I believe he did call them stupid. Directly use that word. James Mennie's on the line over at the Montreal Gazette. Jim, what do you make of that?
Well, let's be clear for our listeners. First of all, Aaron, that was today's update on trade negotiations with the United States of America. And, you're chuckling, and maybe some of our listeners are chuckling, but the bottom line here is this is going to determine the fact that Donald Trump is up to his ears in the Epstein scandal, that he is his own people, his own MAGA cultists are turning against him, because it was, in fact, he and his entourage that, just drummed up this whole issue over pedophilia rings and raping children and so on and so forth. And now, after having heralded this, having teased, as we say in this business, the list, they're sitting on it. So, of course, all the conspiracy theorists who basically elected Donald Trump to office are saying, what are you hiding? And it's fascinating, because even the Republicans in Congress are saying, on the one hand, some of them are trying to cover themselves and saying, yes, I think the president should be completely transparent, but I'm not going to vote that the report be made public, because, that's how they do things down there. And all of this will have an effect, because if Donald Trump wakes up in a bad mood tomorrow, you and I are going to be talking about the 80% tariffs that he decided to slap on, I don't know, everything Canadian, or everything European, or everything Chinese. So, yeah, it's kind of crazy. In the meantime, it to a certain extent, it overshadows whatever attempts that this government is making to perform damage control on what Donald Trump is doing to our economy. And indeed, that's exactly what it is. Today's announcement is about $1 billion to the steel industry, which is being hit with tariffs by the Trump administration. And what they're basically saying, what was announced today, is that we'll be having a Canada First steel use and all these mega projects that theoretically will be taken off now that we've got our elbows up and we're all pulling on the same team. And we'll also be slapping tariffs on Chinese steel, which gets dumped in this country on a regular basis. So we're going to see how that's going to work. So far, the steel industry is not freaking out. And I guess they understand that it may be a Band-Aid on a shotgun wound, but it's better than nothing. But once again, we don't know from day to day what the baying at the moon lunatic south of the border will come up with in 24 hours. So for the time being, that will be our policy. What I find fascinating as well is, and this is another story that's being shunted to the side because of the Epstein files, but Donald Trump now is musing very publicly about getting rid of the head of the Fed in the U.S., the U.S. federal, because he doesn't agree with Trump's assessment as to when rates should be raised or lowered. He's supposed to be independent, but of course that doesn't matter to Donald Trump. So presumably he'll find a way to fire him and install one of his usual coterie of bootlickers. And God knows where the U.S. economy is going to go, and God knows where ours is going to go, because despite the fact we're keep trying to snap these cables that attach us to that economy, we haven't quite done the job. So yeah, once again, uncertainty for a guy who is supposed to be a deal-making genius and a business, a business prodigy. You think he would have more of an appreciation of the effects that uncertainty have on economies, on markets, but that doesn't seem to matter so long as he gets to post his usual Truth Social a pearl of wisdom at 3:00 in the morning while sitting on his toilet.
So, Jim, if I can ask here, with respect to the steel announcement, the statement today from Mark Carney earlier in the day, I heard some people say, you know what, maybe by virtue of the fact this doesn't really apply directly to the U.S., at least it's not aimed at them, it's aimed at China and others who dump. This actually plays to Trump. This is good for him, and maybe he'll take this to mean that, you know what, Canada's on the same side as he is, because he's obviously going after China as well. You buy that?
Well, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm sorry. It may be distasteful for some people who thought that, Mark Carney was going to jump off the third turnbuckle his first week in office and just beat the hell out of Donald Trump. But he made it clear we no longer have the same relationship with the states. But you've got to deal. You're dealing with a crazy man. And for the, if Congress and his own handlers can't keep this guy on a leash, what do you expect the Prime Minister of Canada to do? One thing's for sure is, as I mentioned, it's not great, is damage control. But at least to a certain extent, the steel industry, which is a major industry in this country, has been thrown a life jacket. We'll see where that's going to go. I also think, and I've said this on the show long before any of this happened, I don't think Donald Trump's going to finish his term. I think he's going to be out of office sooner rather than later, and perhaps sooner than many of us think. But in the meantime, you just got to hang on. You got to try and figure out what new outrage, what new absurdity, what new madness will be faced with the next day and deal with it then and there. But for the time being, and certainly the polls suggest that for the time being, Carney continues to enjoy the support of most Canadians. And when I say most, I mean more than 50%. I'm sure there are pundits out there who will turn around and during the campaign, I don't know, maybe he campaigned on vowing to break a beer bottle across Donald Trump's face once he was elected, but that was never said. If you go into the campaign, it was basically things have changed and we have to have a new way of dealing with the states. And we're seeing that. You may not like it, but right now, it's all we've got. And I haven't really heard anyone anywhere, Aaron, who's come up with a better idea. So yeah, I mean, we'll have to wait and see what happens. I'm not, cheerleading for Carney here. I'm just looking at, with the rest of the world, looking at Donald Trump's being permitted by his own people, by his own country, by his own countrymen, to basically drive the U.S. into a very, very deep ditch.
So I want to just go back to your point for a second, if I could, and I know you brought this up before. When you say you don't think he's going to finish his term, by virtue of what? By virtue of the economy going into the tank and everyone realizing nothing is working? That's why?
Yeah, because even to a certain extent, and I heard you going on about doom scrolling yesterday, but you know what? You were living proof. À un moment donné, the spell breaks, the hypnosis breaks, and you realize, what the hell am I doing? Yesterday, inflation came in the U.S., I think at 2.9%.
Yeah.
Okay? Which is not good news. This is not supposed to happen. Well, the Republicans, I don't know if you saw that on Twitter, we're burying Twitter. Prices are down, everything's good. It's the complete opposite of the reality. So there comes a time when the lies are just going to start running off people's backs because they realize, don't tell me things are cheaper when they're not. And especially in the States, where they don't like to talk about socialism, but they do have a social net, and that got cut in the one big beautiful bill. I think all of these things will converge, and converge quite quickly, to make it perhaps a good idea to either, dial down Donald Trump or get him the hell out of there completely. Because I don't think J.D. Vance, where he has suddenly assumed the office, is going to carry on with the Trump legacy.
All right. Well, we shall see, right? Only time will tell. And who knows? Maybe that time, maybe you're right. Maybe it's getting closer. I remember asking Amanda Lang last week, when you look at the numbers, so he's been there since January, right? Inflation numbers, or at least GDP numbers in the U.S., they looked okay. Markets continued to climb, but you're right. Inflation numbers rose yesterday. The question now is this the beginning of seeing those numbers go up every month, or is just an aberration? But I guess we'll wait to find out.
But Aaron, you know what? Everything, it's a matter of perspective. Remember, I know it feels like we've been talking about him for 15 years.
Yeah.
He's been there for 7 months.
True. No, I completely I get it. The one thing I don't get, Bernard Dranville coming out today and say, that money I took away from the education system, I'm going to give you back most of it, but it's not going to look like I give it back to you. It's going to look like I'm giving it to you to use on certain things, and you have to check on those things with me first before you get the money.
The thing that always gets me about the Legault government's incompetence and is how they hate to lose face over that same incompetence. So now, after everybody and their dog has signed this petition, saying that the announcement by Bernard Dranville that the school service centers had to cut costs by $570 million. And everyone's head just exploded. It's like, what are you talking about? What do you do for a living? Well, all of a sudden, we've got this announcement today that up to $540 million, which is money I thought they didn't have, but apparently they do, up to $540 million will be made available for school services directly benefiting students. And as you say, he has this kind of like, hey, I don't want you spending on those fancy Dan field trips to the planetarium or Granby Zoo.
Yeah.
This is going to go for pencil boxes and rulers. Okay, you're not going to start throwing the money away. But they have to have that last word. They have to sound like they're in charge, even though every single scintilla, every molecule of evidence, Aaron, points out that they lost control of the whole system years ago. They have no idea what they're doing, and they keep piling up debt. So it'll be interesting to see, even though you and I are talking about this in the here and now at 5 p.m. on Wednesday, it'll be interesting to see by this time, say Friday, whether all the people who have metaphorically been calling for the heads of the Legault government have calmed down or have in fact become even more virulent in their criticisms of the government. I
will point out just one thing as we wrap up. In the statement that he posted on X, the education minister, he said, we've had discussions, conversations, and we realize, this is the good thing to do. Yet I asked both the head of the Teachers Association and the head of the school board, any conversations? And no. So I guess maybe he's only talking to people on the French side, to actual service centers, and nothing to do with the English boards. But...
Oh, absolutely. And please, and I'm sure it's the biggest coincidence that this is being announced on the eve of what can prove to be yet another embarrassing by-election loss for the CAC.
Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh.
That's, by the way, so wait a second.
August 11th, squiggle that in your calendar.
That's right. Okay, that's right. I for a second I thought I missed it. That's in Athabasca, August 11th.
Yes, sir.
All right, Jim, thank you. I appreciate it.
Good night.